You see, the definition of anxiety is a lot of people relate it to panic, to that fear factor and what they're actually feeling emotionally. But really to come about it and to understand whether it is anxiety that you're experiencing, I think more than anything, you've got to understand yourself. I think it's so important to understand what it is that makes you feel the way that you do. Can you identify those feelings? If you can identify those thoughts, those feelings, and your actions, then you can relate it to an ailment that is associated to what you're feeling, such as anxiety. If we go back to our ancestors or even beyond then, anxiety has always been present because it's a form of making us feel protected and safe. And when we feel we're in danger, we respond in a way where we're protecting ourselves.
So right, from our studios here in London, this is Your Successful Self. And today it feels so exciting because it's our first episode. And I'm here with Dr. Berlynder Walia, a psychotherapist, an anxiety expert, someone on a mission to foster inner harmony through the power of self-relationship and emotional empowerment. She's one of UK's most trusted people when it comes to anxiety and how to manage it. And she's our guest today, and I want to dive right into the conversation with her. Hello, Dr. Berlynder.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's really exciting to be here.
Well, thanks for that. I mean, I am excited because first of all, it's been a long time coming. The idea has been lingering in my head, for long. Thanks to our head of production, Lloyd, when I met him and we discussed things, he was like, Emmanuel, I could see the vision and I want to help you, bring it into reality. So it's an exciting moment for me, and I'm happy that we have you here. And also for our first episode, we're beginning with something, on the mind, and for our ethos, we are all about helping people becoming the best versions of themselves. And so we beginning with something on the mind, and we're beginning with someone like you. I want to start the whole conversation from your background, before becoming a psychotherapist, and for that matter, being on the journey that you are on. Where were you? How did the whole thing started with you, and you are here today with us?
It's funny because life leads you on different paths, and where you might imagine you're going to start off, you don't always end up at that destination. And to be honest with you, if we go back from when I was a very young child, my aspiration, my dream was to be a commercial pilot. And as a young girl, I used to sit in empty cardboard boxes, imagining that I'm going to take flight. And I had that vision, had that dream. And as time progressed, sadly, circumstances within my home environment changed, but I still had that dream of pursuing to be a pilot. And as time went by and I was able to actually put myself in the cockpit with the instructor, I fainted. I blacked out completely.
That is so crazy.
All because of the anxiety and the instructor. I remember waking up because I had worked throughout my life to be a pilot and get to that point. And the instructor said, I think you need to sort out your mind. There's something going on other than the motion sickness that you've fainted even before we've taken flight. The motion sickness and the anxiety didn't stop, and it was stemming from somewhere. And I didn't know what the root cause was, but I wasn't able to take flight. And that was the most disappointing and disillusioning, a feeling ever. And I thought, what am I going to do? But I studied and I ended up in teaching. And from that, again, life has its turns. And before you knew it, I went back into studying psychology. And here I am today as a psychotherapist and author.
Wow.
But that's initially where I discovered I had anxiety from taking flight. Or not so much taking flight, but fainting during the process.
And in your submission, you spoke about you realizing that the anxiety started from somewhere. Are you aware of where it started?
Yes, it's over time that I realized where it started from, because sadly, as a young child, we went through the loss of my father. And I didn't know it at the time because I was only 9 years old. But during that period of time, I didn't even understand what death was. I still imagined that my father was going to walk through the door, because his passing was very sudden, and it was from a brain hemorrhage. He was at the tender age of 38. And
So
so
sorry.
I'm, from my own analysis, thank you for your kind words, but from my own analysis and actually reviewing my life and actually going on that self-discovery journey within, I realized that is where it was stemming from. That anxiety was coming from a place of lack and loss. And at the time, the grieving wasn't present. I didn't understand it, but it caught up with me. It was there at a subconscious level. Yeah. So.
And so, thinking about the whole thing that you've spoken about, myself, like the many out there, we are aware of the word anxiety. But for me, and the reason why I'm saying this is that until I was researching you and reading your book, I wouldn't look at the intricacies of what anxiety is. And so at that moment, what dawned on me is that if myself, as intellectually sound that I am, if I'm unaware of the intricacies of this word, then it means that there are so many people out there as well who have no idea about, the intricacies of the word, even though they are aware of the word. So from a professional perspective, how do you define anxiety and how do we come about it?
You see, the definition of anxiety is, a lot of people relate it to panic, to that fear factor and what they're actually feeling emotionally. But really, to come about it and to understand whether it is anxiety that you're experiencing, I think more than anything, you've got to understand yourself. I think it's so important to understand what it is that makes you feel the way that you do. Can you identify those feelings? If you can identify those thoughts, those feelings, and your actions, then you can relate it to an ailment that is associated to what you're feeling, such as anxiety. Now, anxiety comes in so many different forms. Also, a lot of people, I say this, and I say it with a light-hearted, I think it's a part of our DNA. It's instinct, a reaction. And if we go back to our ancestors or even beyond then, anxiety has always been present because it's a form of making us feel protected and safe. And when we feel we're in danger, we respond in a way where we're protecting ourselves. But over time, worry, lifestyle, environment, society, all these things, and even the exposure on social media has displayed anxiety. Everything's labeled as anxiety, isn't it? And it could be. It could possibly be. So I think the key element here, and to answer your question, is actually understand what it is that you're experiencing. Because when you understand yourself, you can then understand how to deal with the stress or anxiety or tension that you're feeling.
And talking about the understanding of oneself to be able to identify with the anxiety that they having, where does it start? How could I be able to know that this is me, this is who I am, these are the things that I'm going through, and the anxiety to be able to seek help?
Okay, that's a really good question, because of course self-reflection doesn't come easy for many people. But what a lot of people don't realize, that you are in control of your thoughts. If you have freedom in your life and you aren't imprisoned, or there's nobody else that is controlling your environments as such, you have got that control of your thoughts. There are moments where you've got to be able to sit there and actually understand and know who you are. And I speak quite extensively in the book about that self-awareness. You see, when you actually hone in to who you are as a being, what your purpose is, what you want to gain as well as give in society, then you're able to then reflect on how you fit into that society, how you fit into those environments, and you're able to again understand your emotions, how they are impacted by those around you, how they're impacted when you have moments alone. And for me, it started with the writing. To reflect was for me to actually reflect on my daily tasks, how I was feeling during the day. I was doing journaling. It might not work for everyone, but that was the beginning of my journey, because I reflected on where I was coming from, where I was presently, and where I wanted to be in the future. And I realized very quickly, change requires a mind that desires it.
Yeah.
And I desired change.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be in that place where I felt stuck or alone, or I didn't have any path or options available to me. I had to create that. And whatever I was thinking, that creative mindset that just suddenly dawned on me of what I wanted to change in my life, I realized I could make that my reality. I just had to take that first step. And my first step was that self-reflection.
Okay, so with my next question, what I'd like to know is about the symptoms, some of the things that if, let's say, I'm going through anxiety, I should be aware of, and be able to know that, oh, this thing that I'm experiencing, it's anxiety, or that thing that I'm experiencing, it's anxiety. I mean, I know you share a lot of the symptoms in the book, and going through them myself, I was able to identify with a couple of them. And the last couple of days leading to this very moment, I've been anxious, as to the reason why I have no idea. But when I read the book and I went through the book, I discovered that it's more about SAD, social anxiety disorder. And the reason for me is the fear of being judged, when I appear in the public domain, that whatever that I'm doing, it could go wrong and people, judge me and stuff like that. So can you share with us some of the symptoms so that our audience could be able to know that, oh, if I am going through such a thing, it's a mark of an anxiety and I would have to seek help?
Okay, so it's really important that I share this. Everybody's experiences of anxiety vary. Each individual's symptoms vary. Let's take your social anxiety, for example, that fear of being judged. Now, when you are fearing that judgment, it's internal. It's judging yourself. That fear of what you're thinking about yourself is what others might think of you, because there's a certain element of expectations. Now, this is very unique to you, and this is the point that I try to make in the book as well. Everyone's experience of anxiety is unique to them, and anxiety is very normal. It's you don't
really, it's normal.
It's very normal.
I don't find it to be normal, so.
No, but what I'm trying to say to you is, of course it's normal. If we go back to how our instincts are reactive, of course, if you've got certain, and it's a very familiar place to take your mind to, because it makes you feel that you're protected and you're safe. So that's why a lot of people do turn to those instinctive reactive responses. But symptoms vary to everyone. They vary. A lot of the time people say they get sweaty palms, they get palpitations, they get dry throat, they get a headache, tension, they freeze, they pause, they don't know what to say. All of these symptoms, although might be common, they're normal. Okay. Now, once you understand, I have to normalize the anxiety, again, you've got to understand, if I can create that thought process of feeling anxious, of course my mind is creating it. I can then create that thought process of letting that anxiety go or switching it or turning my thoughts around so I understand enough where the anxiety is coming from. First thing I always say, because it's an instinctive reaction, first thing is, are you safe? If you know you are in a safe environment, you're safe. That's a good thing. If we just say an individual or even yourself, this social anxiety is stemming from somewhere, then we've got to take you back to where it started from. You need to understand that. When did I actually experience the anxiety? When was it? What did I actually feel during that process? And if it is judgment, then of course, then reflect, what do you judge about yourself? Is it that fear of failure? Is it the fear of not meeting your expectations? Is it perfectionism? You've got to know what it is within yourself that you fear within yourself that you're going to fail at, that then it gives opportunity for others to react and respond and say, yeah, I'm judging that person. Because to be honest with you, when you're confident and you have that self-esteem, you really don't care what anyone else thinks. If you make mistakes, who cares? You're human. And if you share something personal, it's good to be vulnerable. You're speaking your truth. And I think that's where a lot of people don't realize that. And it doesn't help with all this social media exposure. There's wonderful advantages to it. But of course, having certain settings, and if you don't mind me saying, of course, for some, the spotlights, the camera, all these things can cause the anxiety as well to people. But you've got to be comfortable within yourself and know, okay, if I say something, there's a professional out there that doesn't like it. Am I really bothered? No. That's the confidence you have within.
And so talking about the confidence, if I'm going to be blunt, let me put it this way: as Mark Manson, you know him, the author of the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. How do we, how can we be able to put ourselves in that space, of saying, you know what, I'm going to do this. If it doesn't work right for me, who gives a heck? Excuse my language. How can we be able to, put ourselves in that space? Because if it's about what you are saying, trust me, all over the internet, there are messages like that. But here's the case: we're still suffering from this ailments or whatever you might refer to it. We're suffering with it, which is anxiety. We're suffering with it. So how can we be able to, put ourselves in that space that we can go like, to heck with it. I'm going to be me and do whatever I'm supposed to do.
I think it just does come from a place of confidence, doesn't it? But it's also coming from that place of authenticity. Well, actually, at the end of the day, this is the way I perceive things. This is my opinion. This is what's worked for me. If I know that my moral compass is in place, I know I'm not causing harm to myself or others, I can be authentic, I can be vulnerable, and then I cannot give and I won't care because I'm building that faith and trust within myself. And this is where a lot of people, many people, including myself back in the day, I didn't have that inner faith. I didn't have that inner belief. And when your belief systems, your BS isn't intact, right? Then of course you're going to spiral into that negative thought. And the best way to start switching those words around is where you've had thoughts like, oh, what if something doesn't work out? Switch it in your mindset. Make that positive self-talk come through. When you switch those words and say, well, what if it does work? And you do that consistently, it becomes a common practice. It becomes an automatic response. And then you come to a point where actually it's fine to be you. And people, this is the process I say to a lot of people. Become self-aware, right? Then you can become self-accepting of the good, the bad, the ugly aspects of yourself. So even the things that you don't like about yourself, you accept, right? And then you can start putting in that kindness and caring and love element within, and then it will project out. The self-compassion will come into play. So you've got your self-awareness, your self-acceptance, and your self-compassion. And when you're at that point, you're so confident, you really don't give a damn about anything.
Yeah. And talking of your practice, I mean, you have been practicing for close to 20 years now.
Over 20 years.
Yes, and you've coached or helped royalty, athletes, celebrities. I mean, I came across some of them from the book. I want to know, some of the things that bring people, to your office. I mean, like we've spoke about, my common issue, like we've addressed, is SAD. Apart from SAD and the OCD and the GAD that I am familiar with, what are some of the issues that bring, some of these people to your office? Because someone being a lawyer with access to all of these things, the law from the world and stuff like that, and you could still, suffer from anxiety. What could be the problem?
I can't generalize a problem because everybody's symptoms and issues are unique to them. And really, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. You have to get to the root cause of the problem within. So somebody might come to me with, they came to me recently with a cat phobia. But the therapy, when we started it and we went to the root cause, it had nothing to do with a cat phobia. And
what was it? I'm curious.
Sadly, it was abuse. But that's where it was stemming from. And another case study where a person came to me with relationship issues and they weren't able to go into public spaces where they could eat publicly or be on a date. They had a lot of relationship issues. When we went back to the root cause, the issue was all to do with the relationship with food. It had nothing to do with the relationship with the people. You see, there's all different cases. So, okay, you're talking about royalty. This particular case as well that I had with the royal family abroad, one of the cases had to do with suppression, not being able to have that freedom to be authentic, to be able to have that freedom to actually go out and do what they want. And if we can't follow our desires and we can't do the things that are, pursue our dreams or our passions, of course we're going to have an element of sadness and depression, because when you have that lack of desire, you're suppressing that. You are creating that depression and you're suppressing those dreams, aren't you? And again, it comes back to freedom. If you haven't got that freedom to be authentic or true to yourself, you become unhappy.
Wow, that is very, very interesting. So talking about the people that come to your office, and I'm bringing it to the fact that you spoke about lack of desire and stuff like that. I'm sure you are very aware of this man, Viktor Frankl, whereby, after his his surviving of the concentration camps from the Nazis, and he began his practice, as a psychologist or a psychotherapist yourself. In his own words, he discovered that some of the people that came to his office, or mostly come to his office, then what they were suffering from, and because of that, it led them into anxiety, state. It was as a result of they not having meaning or something to look up for whenever the day is here. So I want to know if people do come to your office with, stuff like that as well, and in the course of you dealing with them, you use logotherapy like Viktor Frankl was using to help these people as well.
Yeah. Your question is, do people come because they're feeling lost?
Yes.
So I think people come for many reasons, and it's not always the anxiety, although I am the anxiety expert. But when they do come, they come for various reasons. And when there is that element where people feel a little bit confused, or perhaps they're not clear about what they're doing, they feel lost, it usually comes down to their sense of belonging. what is available to them, what it is that they want to experience in this existence, what their purpose is. Now, recently, and this is really interesting, I've been having many people approach me because they feel confused about their mindset and existence within this plane. And a lot of people have been talking, and this might seem a little controversial, but a lot of people have been talking about awakening. Okay, so finding their spiritual path. And when they're on this journey of their spiritual path and awakening to all things that are godly, all things that are beyond this realm, that's the element, because there's so much out there on social media. That's the part they're getting very confused about. And interestingly, I'm getting a lot of cases regarding that. And again, it's just honing them back into this plane, explaining to them what the possibility of consciousness is, explaining to them that, of course, if you have that faith and belief that consciousness never begins or ends, you can probably become quite claircognizant, quite clairvoyant, clairaudient. And if that's the case, then you've got to differentiate what it is that you're experiencing beyond this realm and ground yourself back onto this plane and know what your purpose is. So it does come back, usually when people are lost, back to that true element of what you need to fulfill in this life to maybe not only take but also give back to society or community that makes you feel rewarded, comfortable, and you feel that you have done something that makes you feel fulfilled.
And talking about social media, do you think it's contributing to some of these issues that we're facing?
Definitely. And the majority of the time is because we live in a society where a lot of youngsters now feel they want that instant gratification.
That is a big problem.
It is a very big problem because they see what they do on social media, lifestyle, income, money, and they want it instantly, but they don't really, it's almost like that sense of entitlement. And the worst thing is the comparison-itis, when they start comparing themselves to other people who appear to be successful. And when that happens, of course, then it makes them spiral into that depression or anxiety. And then you've got the other elements, haven't you, of social media, which is the online bullying, and you've got your trolls, there's so many things that you can look into that has impacted a person's anxiety and stress and tension. And a lot of individuals, especially the youth, again, if they're not on social media, then they're missing out. And if they're missing out, they don't have those social groups. It's all about number of followers, how many likes, and that's what wins them popularity. They see the influencers, they're getting called to all these celebrity parties, and they want that. They want that instant gratification, don't they?
Yeah.
So it does play a huge role.
Yeah. So how do we break away from that? And the reason why I'm asking this question is that even myself, with all the awareness and, you can relate to it, I still sometimes spiral, back to those, situations. And I could go like, I know my value is not about the things on the outside. But here's the case, sometimes we become so focused about how many likes I have on social media, who is doing what, and, it tends to have this huge, effect on our mental health, So how do we break away from those things?
One thing, I wrote an article about this actually. One thing I said, say for example, a person reaches 1 million followers and they've got millions of likes, and then that platform is taken away. What would you do?
That's a serious question.
All right, let's direct it to you.
Yes.
Swap things around for a moment. What would you do?
First of all, I would say someone focused in that direction. First of all, I'll be mad because then, how do I put it? I'll put it this way. My self-worth and my self-value and my self-esteem is tied to that very thing. And so losing it, it may feel like a part of me is lost. But then again, if you look at the other side of the coin, you'll get to know that there's nothing you could do. And so you have to accept the reality for what it is and just move with the flow. But here is the case that sometimes accepting the reality is difficult.
It isn't if you've already got that self-esteem, confidence, and belief system intact. It isn't.
Yeah.
You see, now there was this whole on the news and everything that was exposed on TikTok, the ban in America. And even when people have got their livelihood on a platform like that, and that livelihood, that income is to be taken away, they know that they've got to prepare themselves to move forward. And this is the thing that a lot of younger people don't understand. Let's say people of my generation, generations above me, will absolutely understand this, and maybe even a generation below. But they know that you can't put all your eggs in one basket. You've got to know that, okay, if I could create something where I've got the millions of followers, and I've done it once, I can start again. But I could do it in something that I know I'm going to get that value. And that value always, everything starts from within you. Okay? And this is where what a lot of people fail to understand, it's not about your followers and the likes you have. It's about the integrity you have. It's about the self-respect you have. It's about the belief system you have. It's about moving forward in your personal growth. Okay? And it's actually about you managing those thoughts and emotions and actions that I talked about earlier. You see, if you understand yourself well enough, none of these things will disappoint you because you won't have any expectations of it. So if it was to go, okay, for a day you'll be upset and maybe 2, but what are you going to do? You start again. You fall, you get yourself up. And that is life. Life would be very boring if it was all plain sailing. It's good to have a few bumps on the journey.
Yeah, I agree with you. But sometimes, well, I would say probably because you have been there before, you can easily take it this way. But sometimes, especially with people of my generation and below, it kind of be hard sometimes, But like I've said earlier, I agree with you. Now, I'll come back to this conversation, but I want to sidetrack, back to your journey. I mean, you have gone through a lot. I discovered it reading the book. You've suffered couple of miscarriages. You've had issues with IVF and stuff like that. Surgeries, serious ones. But here you are, so I want to know about the whole journey to becoming who you are today, even though you've spoken to us about self-reflection and journaling, being the beginning step of your whole journey. Apart from those things, what was the procedure for you? And how was everything? Did you get support from family members? How was the whole situation, with you to becoming who you are, the bubbly, doctor that you are today?
Thank you. I think I rediscovered who I was when I was a child. I reconnected with my inner child. I knew from way before anything that I was happy. And that's the thing. Even if you have been through a journey where you've hit rock bottom, and sadly I did, I had to reconnect with my inner self, my inner child, heal those wounds, and actually make her feel that joy, love, comfort, make my younger self feel that she has everything available to her. And really, that's when I found that happiness within. You see, a lot of people chase happiness, But happiness is always within you.
Yeah.
And it comes back to, if you're happy with the person and the type of person you are, your actual identity and your, let's just say who you are, isn't your title, isn't your name, isn't your religion, isn't your culture. Of course, it plays a part of it, but it goes beyond your human presence. And you've got to reconnect with that love that you have within you.
Yeah.
And if that love brings you happiness, albeit my journey, I mean, I know I talk about the miscarriages and the loss. I also discovered throughout the journey that there was a lot of transgenerational patterns that I was repeating in life. And it wasn't until all of these incidents happened and I was in that dark place and emotionally really quite broken that I reflected and realized, of course, my mindset was coming from that place of lack and loss at a subconscious level. I didn't realize it was there, but at a subconscious level, I was broken. And I kept repeating patterns where I had that lack and that loss. We struggled through finances.
That's a big one.
Yeah, because when my dad died, I have 3 older siblings and my mom. My mom was foreign to England. They did have a business, but we kind of lost everything. And that mindset of lack and loss stayed with me at a subconscious level.
Yeah.
And then as I grew up in my 20s, I lost my health because I ended up battling with a Flodis tumor. And then there was moments of the ups and I got married, but then we had to go through the IVF journey. And then again, that subconscious mindset of lack and loss came into play. And I realized that that's what had to change. I had to change my narrative, but it wasn't until I had lost everything. So where I had those miscarriages, where I had lost the twins in later pregnancy, where I had lost my health again, my husband at the time, of course, he's going through his journey. He was going through grief. He left me. And then I had lost my home and I had lost my job. And it was when I had nothing. And I was sleeping on the floor at my brother's house in my mother's room. And because they had a bungalow at the time. And that was it. I had hit rock bottom because I had just my suitcase. I had nothing else. And my mum very wisely said to me, she said, you could either stay there or you could get up. And the only way is up. So she said, take your time, but it's your choice. And that's when I started thinking, why have I come to this point in my life now where I have nothing that I wanted? All I aspired to really, really do after the disappointment of not being a pilot was having a family of my own, having children of my own. And my family know I love children. And I'm so grateful and so I am more than grateful. I'm so appreciative to my nieces and nephews and them being around me because family were there. And although they didn't understand so much the emotional turmoil, they were physically present for me. And that then helped me up. And then I had to reflect on my life, where I was coming from, where I was presently, and where I wanted to be. And one thing I absolutely knew, I didn't want to be back there in that moment. The other thing I absolutely knew in that present moment was that I wanted to do better than what I was doing at that moment. I didn't want to be living out of a suitcase. So I changed my mind and moved forward. And it takes strength.
Yeah.
But I think it takes a lot of self-reflection again, and it takes a moment where you have to see what is it that you actually want to be doing. If you want to be out of a rut, you could take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it. And the only person that's going to make that change is you. And that's why I keep saying everything starts from within you.
Now, I was going through the iPad to look for, a quote that I came across from the book, with what you were talking about, that I'm probably going to paraphrase you. You spoke about the fact that in spite of everything, I'm truly grateful for all of it because they are what, have made me who I am today, and it kind of make me also reflect back, on my journey. And what I can say is that it's not easy, and it's very tough, and so going through your story, seeing what you've been through and being here, not only being here, but you've turned the whole situation around and you're helping, thousands and millions of people out there. It's very incredible. It's very incredible. So for that, I want to appreciate you on that. There is an experience, that, you had in the course of your practice along the line. Someone was trying to jump, from the London bridge, to end their life. And you were on the spot and you had to, convince them, to come out of that situation. I'm curious. I want to know some of the process, like the things that you said to this person and it hit them in their mind and they had faith in you and they listened to you and you were able to save them from that situation.
See, it was very spontaneous and very frightening. You talk about anxiety, nerves, it was hitting the roof with me. I was anxious because, of course, this person's life is hanging by a thread. And sadly, I experienced that often, especially during COVID. And that was the time that this incident happened. And when this was actually happening, I made it very relatable because this person spoke about family.
Yeah.
And they talked about why they were doing it. Of course, I can't make too many disclosures, but the whole idea of pulling them back in was actually to make them feel that it's not them going so much as the people they're leaving behind that are going to be impacted. And actually making that choice if their life is going to be more worth living with the situation or leaving those people in a worse situation with them going. And we all have choices.
Yes.
And making that decision and choice it's the hardest thing. Nobody can explain what a person is going through when they're so broken.
Yes.
And all you can do, more than anything, if you know of someone that is experiencing these things, or they feel that they don't have that purpose to live, they don't have anything to look forward to, you've got to pull them back in to the present moment and remind them of who they are and why they serve value in this and our existence to the planet. It's not easy. There's so many cases. That was just one incident. But I find it difficult to talk about, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I find it difficult to talk about because every time I do talk about it, it breaks my heart. It really does.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I've not lost anyone in that sense, but I know people that have.
Yeah.
And for yourself and myself, we may review their reason if they've left a reason for why they've had to end their life. It might not make sense.
Yeah.
And people say, well, we could have helped. We could have given you that support. We could have done this. But obviously, there's something internal within that person that they weren't able to even turn to anyone or feel they could turn to anyone. I mean, going back to going to the news recently, all over the media is sextortion. And there was that 16-year-old child. Did you hear about it recently? And sadly, again, where he was being blackmailed, and the poor kid, he didn't feel he could turn to anyone. But that's one thing his mother said, don't ever feel you have to go to that extent where you can't talk to anyone. And this is what I would say to viewers. If there's anyone that experiences or even contemplates the idea of ending their life, the first thing you do is talk to someone. There's always someone out there, even if it is on forums, or if it is the Samaritans, or even if it's people like myself, there's somebody that's there to listen.
Yes.
Because it doesn't have to end that way.
Yes. And talking about that, I don't know, but I'm curious to know from your point of view. Don't you think it's about time as a world, we give ourselves grace? And the reason why I'm asking this question is that sometimes, people going through such stuff, and looking at it, I'm looking at it from my own perspective as well, from my own point of view, because sometimes some of the things that I have to endure emotionally, sometimes I wish I could get somebody to speak to, but majority of the times I don't speak to people because of the fear of judgment, because going to speak to this person or that person, you have no idea what they are going to say behind you. So that fear sometimes, takes us away from speaking to people, especially we guys, And I remember a situation I had over here in London at the North, Middlesex Hospital, when I moved in over here. And, I had been in the country for a couple of, for some time, things were not clicking up for me. I was, how the situation is over here in London with cost of living and stuff like that. And, I was going through my account, to cater for me, and everything was draining and things were not clicking for me, or things were not, working out for me. And it was having a toll on my mind. And I didn't have anybody to speak to. So one day I just mustered the courage and I went to the North Middlesex Hospital, the mental health department. And I was like, do you have, a section over here or a department over here that when someone is going through such a thing, they could speak to? And so they sat me down, analyzed my situation, and they were like, nothing is wrong with you, it's just what you are going through. That is why, you're going through such an experience. So they took me through a talking therapy, and that being in that section alone with them, I was so relieved, and I was back to myself, and I was able to, take life on once again. So, like I've said, don't you think it's about time that as a world we give ourselves grace and, allow people to be vulnerable and open and speak what they have on their mind when they are going through sex stuff, especially men?
I think it's so important, and I really appreciate your vulnerability, because to share that, considering that you fear the judgment, it's very brave of you. And you see, when you open up, that sense of freedom comes into play. Of course, people should feel safe when they're talking to someone. They should feel that it's that inner dialogue that we have. It can be quite nasty to us at times, okay? And it's that inner dialogue and that self-talk that we need to switch, right? And that's where giving yourself grace comes from, I believe. Because let me tell you this, again, a lot of people may not realize that when you have negative self-talk, okay, it releases stress. It releases a lot of stress and the chemical cortisol into your body. And that can be quite detrimental to your health. And when we don't understand what our body is feeling, we sometimes go into panic mode. And the more we panic or stress ourselves or get anxious with our thoughts or words that, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Then you're creating more cortisol. What is wrong with me? And my body hurts, or I'm feeling palpitations. You're spiraling into those negative thoughts. Whereas on the other hand, when you have positive self-talk, you're releasing neurotransmitters like serotonin, which is the feel-good hormone. And when you stop, pause, and you say, okay, I'm going to just pause for a moment, and I'm going to actually see, am I in danger? If I'm not, what is it that I'm experiencing? And then you realize what your symptoms are, and you know, is there anything around me that's triggered me? Take that moment to give yourself grace and pause. Because that's what I think you mean by saying give yourself grace. It's pause and reflect in your own mind. Talk to yourself in your own mind that, okay, what is it that I am experiencing? If I'm sitting here and I'm putting myself down, what is it that I'm putting down about myself? Am I saying I'm not good enough? Am I saying that, oh, I don't belong in this environment, I shouldn't be here? And then you switch those words and practice it. Keep practicing it, because that way what you're doing is releasing the serotonin, balancing those chemical releases in your body, which will help you calm down, will help you then be able to be kinder to yourself, be more caring towards yourself. You did a very good thing going into the talk therapy, because you spoke it out. If there's people in that instance where they don't have that available to them, what can they do? These are the type of things that they can practice and do to help them calm their nerves, and then actually sit down, take a moment, be present, do some mindfulness techniques like the grounding techniques, exercises like what 5 things can you see, what 4 things can you touch, what 3 things can you actually hear, what 2 things you can smell, what 1 thing you can taste. It doesn't have to be in that order. But when you learn these mindfulness techniques to bring you to the present moment, you can then reflect on what's going on in your mind, what you're feeling in your body. Give yourself that grace, give yourself that time to pause, and then counteract those negative thoughts with more positive ones, and change that feeling within you, physical feeling within you, so you don't feel panicked, or you don't feel tense, or you don't feel so stressed. Of course, it takes practice. And that's why I wrote the book, because the tools are in there. If you keep practicing those and take those tools from the book, then you take away what works for you. And then automatically you know exactly what to do. If you are in a situation where you feel, oh gosh, I haven't got anyone here available to me to talk to, and if I make that journey on the train to get to a hospital, or like you did, or whatever, that might trigger panic. So you need to actually know what it is within you that works for you, what practice and tools work for you, to then be able to actually put yourself in a position where you can pause, reflect, and then move forward.
Now, talking about the book, I want to switch our conversation to it. I mean, it's an incredible book. I remember,
thank you.
I remember texting you in the course of reading it, and I was like, I'm feeling anxious with this whole thing that we want to start, but reading your book is helping me anyway. Like, you'll be fine. Just apply, the stuff in there. And before we continue the journey, I want to show you to the camera and let our viewers know that it fixed me, how to manage anxiety and take control of your life. It's one of the best books, written on anxiety and dealing with negative emotions. And I can't recommend it enough for you that it's a great book. And when you grab a copy from Amazon and all books shops around the world, both online and offline, you enjoy it and you can help yourself with it, dealing with your negative emotions. Now, someone might say, another book on anxiety and negative emotions, there are a ton out there,
Yes.
So I think my next question would be like, I mean, you have been in the practice over 20 years. What was it at the marketplace in relating to this very subject that you saw that wasn't there, and because of that you made a decision that I want to write on this thing to help others out there?
You see, what happened with me when I was in that dark space that I spoke about, there was I could turn to books, but there was a lot of theory.
Yes.
And I couldn't put a lot of it into practice because it's easy to read about the theoretical aspects of anything. But when you actually need to put it into practice, you don't really have the toolkit to do it. And also working your way through the book to know where to turn, what to implement. I thought I need to put a little bit of a quiz in here so people will have that self-awareness. And I didn't find that in other books. And also at the beginning of the book, right at the beginning, I give quick fixes.
Yes.
And the reason I give the quick fixes is because, again, this is a type of book, and I call it a pocket guide, really. It's the type of book that you could turn. I'm just going to show you here. So the quick fixes are for managing anxiety. Again, if you go through this, you've got those grounding techniques or controlled breathing or mindfulness, meditation or positive self-talk, all there for you to practice to see what it is that, again, works for you individually and what helps you calm down. For instance, anxiety, people talk about panic attacks. Simple technique, a quick fix. Pop an ice cube, if it's available, into your mouth. That will calm your nervous system down. You see the distraction. And then again, the positive self-talk. I even talk about positive affirmations. There's a prayer in here, the Hawaiian prayer by the book in the book Zero Limits by Dr. Joe Vitale, where I talk about Ho'oponopono.
Yes, I came across it.
Yes. So all of these techniques, if they're there, you've read them, you know about them, they're in the back of your mind when you're walking along and there's an anxious moment. If you know that technique has worked for you previously, you're able to instantly use it. But if not, you've got the quick fixes at the front. You've got the quiz at the front to help you process. I know you were doing the scoring system as well.
And we should come to that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because the thing is, with simple tools like that within the book, people just seeing the word anxious or anxiety feel anxiety. And the book itself might be a trigger for some people. But that's why I have the quiz there, for you to understand, is the content of the book going to make me feel anxious? If it is, why is it that? What is it that I'm not addressing within myself that's making me nervous to now address this book? So I start with those conversations right at the beginning, and I didn't see that available anywhere. And I thought it was really important to include that.
And I like the fact that, you write it in the simplest of English that, there could ever be, that if one should pick it up, for just a read, instantly they could, grasp the message and, help themselves with, My next question, it's been over 20 years, since you've been in this journey. You have your book out, you're doing speaking engagements across the country. You've appeared on the TEDx platform. You've helped so many people as far as the work that you're doing is concerned. What I'm curious to know is that, are there, some things on the horizon, that, you have in mind to achieve as far as the job that you are doing is concerned, that even with the many things that you've achieved, you still, aspiring to achieve, as far as this space that you're operating in is concerned?
Okay. I suppose for me, I'm very much going with the flow, but also I've learned this on my journey. When opportunities come, such as this, which I'm really quite honored to be on your platform, always say yes. So whatever opportunity comes towards me, one thing I've learned for personal growth, always say yes, because you don't know where it's going to lead you. And something I probably didn't include so much in detail in the book, But I've always wanted to be an author. I've always wanted to be a writer. And I actually write fiction.
Here you are. Yeah.
And this is my first non-fiction book, but without any pre-planned or pre-assumed idea. But I'm already in the process of writing the second. And I had no idea I was going to write a second non-fiction book. You see, so for me, I'm very much living in the present, taking every opportunity that comes to me and moving forward with that. And really not concerning myself or worrying too much about the future. I know what I desire is what I have presently. What I want is everything I need presently. And I think a lot of people find it really difficult. It's not to say I'm not aspiring to do something more. What I'm saying is I'm appreciating the moment. I'm appreciating everything right now. I'm living my life in that mindfulness mindset.
Right. You've heard it all. Fix Me. How to manage anxiety and take control of your life. Grab a copy for yourself and for your loved ones, and help yourself with it. And now my last two questions before we wrap up. Where can people find you on social media? And
I think best platform to find me is LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
And especially, I'm on all platforms. So you can find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. My website is, I have two websites. So
give me talk. Yeah.
So there's serenelifestyles.com, and that's my organization, which I'm pleased to say is expanding. And then you've got my author website, which is berlinderwalia.com.
Yeah.
And again, please get in touch if there's any questions or anything that you want to collaborate in. Please get in touch on LinkedIn or any social media platform. As I said, it's great.
Yeah. And my last question, what is success to you? And the reason why I'm asking this question is that our platform is all about helping people, become their authentic selves and successful, and you and I agree to the fact that when it comes to the idea of success, everyone has their own definition, even though, in my opinion, I believe there is a general definition which is about connecting to your authentic self, connecting to who you are in the inside, your essence, and living life in that direction. Because I believe it's only when you've lived life in that direction, you can become fulfilled and success will be easily, achieved by you. So I want to hear from you. What is success, to you?
I think to celebrate every single win that you have. If it doesn't matter how big or small, that is success. If your struggle is getting up in the morning and you've managed to get out of bed and get up, that's success. If you've managed to take that walk or go to the gym or do the activity that you said for so many months you were going to do, that's success. If you're able to fulfill those needs that you need to for even the smallest wins, the smallest goals throughout the day, that's success. You see, and that's where people don't realize that every moment in your life of what you've done, where you are, where you're coming from, that's, if you haven't done that self-discovery journey, you haven't self-reflected, then you won't get to the point where you appreciate yourself. And I think that's where people struggle. They don't know how to appreciate who they are, what they're about. And that's when self-compassion comes into play. Celebrate your wins. Be grateful for everything that you have. And that includes any aspect of yourself. Your health is your wealth. And that is success in itself.
All right, we've heard it all. Fix Me. How to manage anxiety and take control of your life. Ladies and gentlemen, grab a copy for yourself. Dr. Berlynder, it's been a pleasure having you on our platform. And thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.